Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jen, and I am with Aging Advantage, and I am so glad that you are here with me today. This presentation, again, is brought to you by Aging Advantage, and our mission is to support healthy aging and also to help combat food insecurity, housing insecurity, isolation issues, and help you all to be more resilient and self-reliant and help you to live a more independent, full, meaningful life. And we fortunately are able to provide educational opportunities like this by partnering with different grant opportunities that we have, as well as getting donations. And we serve the St. Louis and surrounding area. Again, a lot of these topics, though, are absolutely vital and important information for everyone, really just around the country, to be able to access and to be able to learn from. So we are just really excited. And, my goal and my mission is to create these videos for all of you and these presentations to give you all real practical information that you can use in your everyday life, or it might be someone that you caregive for, or someone that you love. And, maybe you're looking at, where are we at now and where are we going to go, with someone's care or supporting someone's care. And so I really just want to arm all of you with the tools that you need to also feel successful in that type of a role as well. The practical information that I share with you all can really be used in your everyday life. And today we are going to be embarking on a 4-part series. This is going to be part 1 of that. But the topics that we're going to be covering are regarding mood, memory, and meaning. And for all of us, again, this is just a topic that really touches each one of us in a different way. And again, if not now, it will as we continue to age or someone in our life continues to age that we care for. So sit back, relax as always, get comfy, get cozy, grab your drink, and let's get started. Again, today, is going to be, like I said, the beginning of the 4-part series that I'm going to do. And in this particular part 1, we're going to be covering understanding the mind-mood connection. And it's going to really lay the groundwork for us for everything else that we're going to cover in the rest of the series. And here's why, this topic matters so much. For a long time, people talked about memory and mood as if they were 2 separate things. And honestly, your brain does the thinking and the remembering, but your heart also does the feeling. And the truth is they're deeply connected. So connected that we really can't talk about the one without talking about the other. For the next 30 minutes or so, we're going to be exploring how our emotions, things like loneliness, stress, anxiety, and even our own sense of purpose, actually shape how our brain functions. And on the flip side, how our brain shapes how we feel. And by the end of today's session, you'll have a much clearer picture of why caring for your emotional well-being is just as important as any other, puzzle or brain game when it comes to protecting your memory. So let's get started. Emotional health and brain health. Let's start with a simple but powerful idea. Emotional health and brain health, again, are deeply intertwined and interconnected. Think about it this way. How we feel absolutely shapes how we think. Remember and process the world around us. And so in that kind of capacity, at the very same time, the health of our brain directly, again, influences our emotional well-being. It's a two-way street. Here's something that might surprise you. The brain is both a cognitive organ and also an emotional organ. It's not divided. into like a thinking part and then a feeling part that operate independently from a doctor standpoint. They're actually intertwined again and they're just woven together. And this means caring for the mind and caring for the heart are really the same job. So as we go through today's presentation, I want to keep this idea in the back of your mind. When we talk about protecting memory, we're also talking about protecting mood in this type of way. And when we talk about supporting emotional well-being, we're also talking about supporting cognitive health because they absolutely go hand in hand. Now let's talk about one of the biggest challenges many older adults face: isolation. And we especially saw this during the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic and post-pandemic as well. But still now, a lot of times, I think, the lingering effects of that are still happening, but also just in general, isolation can happen because, we're moving out of different homes or neighborhoods or cities or areas that we used to. We have family and friends that are, moving across the whole entire nation, moving cities. We also have situations as well, unfortunately, as we get older, that we have to experience, the loss of, friends and family and, other actual human beings in our life, as well as pets. And so all of, the compilation of all those things together can absolutely increase, unfortunately, that feeling of isolation. So research has done something very important. Social isolation can accurately, I'm gonna re-say that. Social isolation can accelerate memory loss and cognitive decline. And that's a really serious statement. And we're gonna break that down into why that happens for you guys. So first, isolation reduces cognitive stimulation. When we're not engaging with others, having conversations, sharing stories, reacting to what someone else says, our brain simply isn't getting the same kind of active workout that it needs. Second, isolation increases the risk of depression and anxiety. Loneliness doesn't just feel bad emotionally, it is real and it has measurable effects on our mental health over time. And third, isolation has negative effects on memory retention specifically. The less our brain is engaged socially, the harder it can be to hold new information and recall things that we already know. I know for some of you, isolation might look like living alone, again, since a spouse passed or a family member is living far away, or simply just not getting out as much as you used to. But please hear me say this very clearly. If this resonates with you, you're not alone in feeling this way. There are things that we can do, and there's things, again, that we're going to be talking about. So we're going to talk about more practical solutions for combating this later in this series. The link between mood and brain health. This next session is really at the heart of today's presentation. We're going to explore how emotions, loneliness, and anxiety shape cognitive function and brain wellness. Think about your brain almost like a garden, just for a moment here. And when it's tended well, watered, given sunlight, cared for, the weeds pulled, it flourishes. But when it's neglected or exposed to way too much harsh weather, it struggles to grow the way that it should. Our emotions kind of act like the weather in this kind of example. So chronic loneliness, ongoing anxiety, unresolved stress, these create a kind of harsh climate over time for our brain. And over time, that climate can affect how well our brain functions, including how well we think and also remember. The good news is, just like a garden, this can be tended to and it can be improved. Understanding this connection is the first step toward protecting both your mood and your memory. And that's exactly what we're building toward today. Let's talk specifically about anxiety because it plays a way bigger role in memory and focus than many people realize. Anxiety, well, okay, from a disruptive focus standpoint, there's, a couple different things as you see here. There's disruptive focus, processing difficulties, and mimicking cognitive decline, right? So let's start with disruptive focus. Anxiety disrupts focus and working memory, making it harder to hold and process information in the present moment. Have you ever been anxious about something and focused yourself reading the same paragraph over and over and over again without actually absorbing it, right? And a lot of us would relate to this like if we were trying to do school, we're trying to learn something new, learn a new task, learn a new hobby. And you're looking at it, but it's just not clicking. And your brain isn't remembering the information. And so, that's this effect in actual action. Processing difficulties. Persistent anxiety causes difficulties in processing information clearly, which can slow down thinking and make decision making harder. When your brain is preoccupied with worry, there is less mental space available for everything else. So, kind of think of this one as like, if there's a hamster wheel kind of happening in your brain, right? It's harder for anything else to actually get in there. Um, and for your brain again to be able to slow down its thinking and to be able to like pause the hamster wheel and make an actual decision. It's kind of like your brain gets on hyperdrive and just keeps looping. And without that ability to pause and reset and think and concentrate, it's harder for us again to actually like make decisions and to stay focused, look focused, and do one task, the next task, the next task sometimes. Mimicking cognitive decline. Here, I think is just such an important one. Anxiety can actually mimic or worsen cognitive issues. And this is absolutely essential to evaluate mood and mental health alongside memory conditions. So basically, from a doctor perspective, in other words, like if you, yourself included, if you or a loved one is having trouble concentrating or remembering things, a lot of times I'm gonna throw this in here too, is sometimes, again, from a doctor perspective, signs and symptoms of this can actually present like someone is ADD or ADHD. And you can kind of feel like that. And when we go to actually put those people through that specific, testing for those specific disorders, ADD or ADHD, it doesn't, it doesn't show that the person actually has that. And sometimes, and I'm going to say a lot of times, Dr. Amen from Amen Clinics talks about this a lot. There are several times that people get misdiagnosed with ADD or ADHD when it's actually an anxiety and concentration issue. It has nothing to do, with the ADD or ADHD. Again, it just looks like that because you can't hold your focus, you can't make decisions that like, cognitive processing process isn't working right when you have high anxiety like that. So again, anxiety can actually mimic or worsen the cognitive issues. And again, it's essential to evaluate mood and mental health alongside memory conditions. So, in other words, like if your loved one is having trouble concentrating or remembering things, it is absolutely worth asking, could anxiety be playing a role here? And sometimes, again, what looks like a memory problem is actually an anxiety problem. And it could also be vice versa sometimes. And that distinction matters, absolutely for, making sure you guys get the right kind of help, the right kind of support, or the right kinds of medications potentially. Okay, so let's talk about the benefits of social engagement. Oop, actually, no. Okay, scratch that. Sorry, all of my stuff was a little bit out of order. Let's talk about the role of purpose and meaning. So let's shift to something a little more uplifting now. Is going to be the the perspective power of purpose for all of you. And having a sense of purpose supports both emotional and cognitive health. And it isn't just a nice, sentiment. It's backed by real evidence. So purposeful activities promote sustained brain engagement. They help to strengthen reliance and resilience and provide daily motivation. Whether that purpose comes from gardening, volunteering, mentoring a grandchild, maybe it's caring for a pet, or being active in your faith community, having something that gives your day meaning is enormously important and it really matters. When individuals feel their lives hold meaning, they tend to show better memory retention as well. And this, as we know, reduces the risk of cognitive decline and greater emotional well being. So, today, I'd like you to take a moment and think about what gives your life purpose right now at this stage of life. And that might look different than what used to give your life purpose in the past or what you thought it was going to be. But where you are right now, what gives your life purpose? And it doesn't have to be, just know this, something big or something formal. It can be something as simple as tending to a garden, calling a friend each week, or looking forward to a weekly activity or a weekly hobby or weekly visit. Whether it is for you, it's doing the real work to protect your brain. The benefits of social engagement. So let's build on that idea of concentration with a closer look here at social engagement. So for mood and cognition, regular social interaction improves emotional well-being and supports sharper cognitive function over time. Even a short conversation with a neighbor or a phone call with a friend absolutely can count for this. Brain stimulation. Conversation with group activities actively engage the brain. And it also helps to encourage mental alertness and new thinking patterns as well. And this is absolutely important. When we talk to others, we're constantly, we're listening, we're processing, we are formulating a response. So we have to do kind of problem solving in our own brain, right? Then we have to actually, open our mouth and respond. And, we also have to adapt to what's happening around us, from other people, like what they say, what they do, especially if someone's physically present with you, all those nonverbal cues, are they still listening? Are they falling asleep? Are they paying attention? Can you visibly tell someone's getting angry? So now you have to adapt to what you are going to say next, you know, to be respectful and kind and caring and all the things. So it can absolutely be a real mental workout, which is perfect. Emotional resilience. Finally, meaningful social bonds build inner strength, helping us better cope with stress, loss, and life's challenges. So having people to lean on doesn't just feel good, it absolutely makes us more resilient when hard things happen. And that's where, again, surrounding your life with different types of people, different type of people sometimes, now than maybe you had when you were younger. Maybe again, you now have like multi-generational people that are around you, that support you. Maybe again, the who's around you might look a little bit different. And especially in the context, if like we're living at home and now you have moved into a group setting environment where you're in like an assisted living or independent living or something like that, you now have new people that you are around. Maybe you're choosing also to go to like a senior center or a community center a couple times a week. Again, you're going to now be exposed in a good way, to different types of people, maybe even different types of cultures, different types of ways that other people do things. And I think, again, just having those meaningful bonds with other people, and having those bonds be diversified also outside of maybe just only people in your family or only people, in your neighborhood or only people in your church. I think is really important because again, what happens if your bonds are mostly in connections with the people in your neighborhood, but then what happens if you have to move? Same thing, like if it's only with your family, but then your family moves, or you have to move away from your family because you need a particular type of care that isn't available, in your area. We had an example of this in my family. One of my aunts, unfortunately got cancer, and some of her cancer treatments had to be done in Colorado. And so anyway, so she had to live there for a while. And she said it was the weirdest thing because she had to make, new friends again, all, out there compared to, the circle that she had of support around here, especially in such a challenging time of life. And so, that's where I really want to encourage you all too. If you've been feeling more disconnected lately, I want you to think of like one small way that you can reach out this week. Maybe it's a phone call, maybe it's a visit, maybe it's joining a group activity. But all these small steps can really add up. And especially now, and again, in Watch My Aunt's Journey, we do have access, to virtual types of care, right? And virtual types of connection, through FaceTime and, video calling and video meeting apps and all the different ways that we can connect like that virtually with people. But again, you have to take accountability and you have to be an active participant. So you can't always just be sitting around waiting for everybody to reach out to you. And remember, you also have to reach out to other people and, and meaningfully try to connect with them and stay connected. Let's pause here and kind of pull everything together that we've covered so far. So we're going to talk about, loneliness and anxiety, social connections, the intertwined well-being. So let's start with the loneliness and the anxiety. Again, loneliness and anxiety can negatively influence cognition, like we talked about, definitely increasing the risk of memory decline. and also cognitive impairment over time. And, again, with this one, that's where, we discussed with the anxiety, um, it can, creep, like I said, kind of creep into our lives either quickly, sometimes or slowly. And also same thing, with negativity or like negative feelings. And, I think especially as we age and or if we, are disabled persons and, we have some health challenges, or again, we're starting to have some, you know, brain cognition challenges, etc. Sometimes, our body and our mind isn't doing what we would like it to do. And when you couple that in having that, loss, if you will, of feeling confident and feeling independent, and all the things, sometimes, it can be a lot. And that in and of itself can cause a lot of anxiety because you have a lot of uncertainty. You don't know what your body is going to do next, or what it's going to not want to do, next, like how it functioned before. Or same thing with your mind. And, for a lot of people, that can cause, a lot of anxiety. And when you couple that with people's lives, that maybe are caregiving for you, being really busy, people not being around as much, then, it can absolutely also kind of kick in a fear of abandonment or a fear of people forgetting about you, and a fear, that you're going to have to like do all this alone, by yourself. And you might not do it well. You might not be successful. You might, not have as great of self, reliance and resilience as you used to have before in the past. And so, all of these things can, kind of creep in and start, increasing kind of that risk again of memory decline and cognitive impairment over time. So again, just something I want you all to, again, be aware of. And whether it's in your life or in someone's life around you, I just, again, I want you, just be very keen with your observation to see kind of what's going on for yourself and for others. Next, let's talk about social connections. So, social connections, meaningful social connections, and purposeful activities help to protect the brain's health and support the long-term cognitive resilience. And like we discussed, it's so important because when you're having those conversations, as we discussed with other people, or purposeful activities, trying to learn a new hobby or even just do a new hobby, or engage in just a structured daily schedule for your life. Maybe you're volunteering, maybe that is even just getting up and you have your cup of coffee in the morning and you do a little bit of journaling. Maybe after that you call and check in with one of your kids or one of your grandkids or a neighbor, or whatever that is. Maybe you make that your time structured and built into your day for your morning connection, that you're going to reach out and connect with someone. And then maybe you do that again and you have it just again built into your evening routine. You eat dinner and then you reach out and you connect with someone else, in the evening. And so I think sometimes, again, just having these social connections built in to your life or, to your week, maybe it's like every Wednesday or, every other Wednesday you go to lunch with the ladies group, or, maybe you, meet up with the guys and you guys play cards on Thursdays, or something. But having these things just kind of automatically put into your daily routine and your weekly routine, monthly routines, can really help again to support that long-term resilience cognitively, keep your brain engaged, and help to keep your brain healthy as well, which is super important. So intertwined well-being. And, the big takeaway here is, like we talked about, your emotional well-being and your brain are deeply intertwined. So caring for one will actually strengthen the other. And, and I think again, it's just the awareness of, okay, how are you, living life to make sure that one is supporting the other, instead of thinking of them as completely two, separate entities. Because I think a lot of times, again, now with all the technology and all the apps and all the learning opportunities we have, and I did a video previously on incredible apps for seniors. So if you haven't checked that one out, go back and listen to that one. But in there, we discussed, some of these different games and again, like brain stimulation, learning things that people can access. But, again, I think a lot of times we think or doing puzzles, or something like that, right? We think of keeping our brain sharp, and doing activities like that, playing chess, whatever, things like that to keep our brain sharp. We think of those sometimes as separate, independent activities than, again, focusing on taking care of our emotional well being. So, an example of this would be this is like a this is better than this example. But so if you're going to, let's say, do an activity, or you're thinking in your head, okay, I need to add some structured kind of activity to my day, my week, my something, my schedule, to get a little bit more, again, just like brain engagement, to keep my mind mentally sharp, right? You can do like the app, the Wordle, word search apps and stuff like that on your phone at home by yourself. And is that good? Yes. But what is great and even better is if you can do that in a group setting. So there's different ways that you can actually connect, sometimes like again through an app, or sometimes even like through your TV. um, you can do that same thing in a group setting with other people. So you're getting that socialization, you're getting that emotional and physical, connection, and brain socialization stimulation, while you're also getting that cognitive brain engagement. And so the second example, obviously, is better than the first example. Both of them are great compared to doing nothing. But, if you can couple those things together, like example, playing solitaire by yourself on your phone versus this is going to be better. Better is, again, meeting up with a few people and actually playing cards and having that social interaction while you're doing the activity. Doing a puzzle by yourself is great, but it's even better if you can do a puzzle with someone else, or a few other people. So hopefully kind of those examples make a little bit of sense here. So lastly, I just want to leave you guys with this thought before we close today. So, connection strengthens, again, both mood and memory, like we discussed. And, every connection that you share is an act of care that nurtures not only your heart, but also your mind, as we learned. So, my invitation to you is this: reach out, stay present. Again, I want you to look at your schedule, like those examples we just went over. Look at your schedule, look at your calendar, and see, are there different ways that you could, again, do something great, like I said, like doing the puzzle, but, and maybe that's already in there, but look at ways you can enhance and kind of 2.0, if you will, to the better option of doing a puzzle with a friend. So look at ways, again, like that, just to foster connection in your everyday life. And again, it doesn't have to be dramatic or super time consuming. It just kind of, needs to really be consistent. So thank you all so much for joining me today for this part one of our memory, mood, and meaning series. And again, to recap what we talked about emotional health and brain health and how they're just deeply connected and absolutely intertwined. And the, impact that isolation can have on memory, how anxiety can affect your concentration, and also the protective power of having purpose, and also that social connection with other people. In our next presentation, part two, we're going to dive deeper into memory changes themselves, what's a normal part of aging, and what could be a sign that there's something more, something else potentially going on. And we're also going to look at how emotional health plays a part in all of that as well. So I hope you will join me for part two and for that conversation. But before we go, as always, I just want to thank you again for spending the time with me today. And if you found today's presentation helpful, please follow Aging Advantage on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you don't miss incredible content such as this series, along with our other presentations that we've done on healthy aging. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you next time. Thanks for joining us.